With Tri Broadcasting, I'm Reece Leiker. In 2020, business seemed to be going as usual until the COVID-19 pandemic hit. All of a sudden, our economic state was in question, and businesses didn't know if they'd be able to survive the next year. We heard a lot about this in our mainstream news, but not as much at a local level here in Hays, Kansas. So I decided to interview 6 different individuals representing industries such as retail, restaurant, hotels and lodging, fitness, beauty, and more. So you'll get to hear how the pandemic impacted them and how they had to pivot firsthand in this video. How long has the Chamber been in business for?
Since 1917, so 104 years.
Awesome. And how long have you been with the Chamber for?
Since July of 2019.
What is the Chamber's role in Hays?
The Chamber's role in Hays is really to connect business and advance community, and how we do that is by being a conduit of resources. We end up having a lot of events that celebrate really the success of our business community, and we also have a group of ambassadors. They are a talented group of 50 men and women who represent a variety of industry across the community, and they are really the gatekeepers of our organization as they go to our events throughout the year, and once they learn about those businesses and the services that they offer, they can in turn share that knowledge and information with people when they make referrals.
Did the pandemic impact your members positively or negatively?
I would say both. Just from a fiscal standpoint, our chamber membership went from about 506 members at the peak of 2020, and really at the height of the pandemic, we dropped to about 469 members. Ultimately, many of those who did close their doors, and so they were not able to even keep their own business open, which was definitely unfortunate. We did also see a lot of industries and businesses thrive because of the pandemic, specifically looking at our technology industry, because so much of what we did during the pandemic really evolved around technology and making sure that computers and internet were available to do telecommunications and things of that nature. So I think you see a wide gamut of industry like that did really well. And then I know our restaurants were definitely negatively impacted. Their work supply actually was probably the mostly widely impacted, because they didn't have students, who were working there anymore because they were back at home versus being here in Hays.
And did you notice that the pandemic kind of changed how business goes in Hays?
Absolutely. Supply chain issues have been very significant, and it doesn't matter which industry that you're in, as well as childcare has been a significant struggle for folks too. When you're looking at the health of your overall community and moms and dads having to, take care of students at home or stay at home because they don't have daycare because maybe they're caring for a sick child, that's significant, and it had a really big impact on our businesses.
And then what industry or what businesses did have to close that you can recall? Like, what industry were they in?
I would say just a lot of them were, 1 or 2 man woman shops that maybe didn't have an actual business front. Perhaps they worked out of their home, and because of, just circumstances being what they weren't able to keep their doors open. Retail was probably hit pretty tough. We do know of probably about 5 specific retailers that did close during that time too.
And then would you say overall business in Hays has gone back to normal, become worse, or is now better?
That's a great question. I really feel, again, it depends on the industry that you're in. I think for the most part, outside of that workforce issue, things have rebounded pretty well. But we do still hear about businesses who, are back ordering parts and aren't going to be receiving them for, 3 to 6 months. That's really the first time in our modern day history that's been as big of an issue as it is when you live in such a fast-paced world where, you can really get your hands on anything. And then you go to the adverse of that to where things aren't available anymore. I'm very proud of our business owners who really got creative to find unique solutions during these challenging times, and they found ways to just make things work. And I'm proud of our Ellis County citizens, because we always seem to be able to do less with more. And I feel like everybody really rallied around one another during COVID to support small business.
What is the overall climate of the business community today?
So, interestingly enough, we're very proud to say that there were a lot of businesses that started out of the pandemic because interest rates were so low. So, today we are actually at 503 chamber members. We are very proud about that. So, we did a very nice correction on our membership levels. I can tell you that a lot of businesses are still even in the process of opening doors, and we're starting to see a good variety of different businesses maybe that we haven't had in the past, or we're excited to have a lot of things happening in downtown. I can share that Sarah Bloom has been very excited to announce that I think we only have one business downtown that's even available for something to go in there. So it's good. Things are booming in Hayes, and I look forward to see what the future holds.
So James, how long have you been in business?
We have been in business at Chestnut Loft for going on 4 years here, actually, this month.
What industry is the Chestnut Loft considered to be in?
The Chestnut Loft is actually considered to be in hotels and lodging.
And did the pandemic impact you negatively or positively?
Well, if we look, there was really two aspects of that, because at first it affected us very negatively because we actually had to temporarily close our doors because we didn't know what was going on. No one wanted to make reservations. But since then, since travel has picked back up, it's actually affected us very, very positively.
During COVID, how did you have to pivot as a business?
For us, how we pivoted, of course, we always maintain very clean standards here. And so we had to change a couple of our products to deal with COVID, a couple of our cleaning protocols. We added a couple of amenities. We were looking at the market and seeing what people were looking for when they were traveling. And one of the things they were looking for, of course, was a private residence, a place that they could have to themselves, something with great filtration, cleanliness, an outdoor space, and overall just a sense that they knew that they were safe from COVID when they entered through the doors. And so we adjusted appropriately, and it's been great for us ever since.
Would you say there was a time when COVID hit that you considered closing the Chestnut Loft down, or did you close the Chestnut Loft down?
Yeah, actually, well, we did. We closed the doors to reservations for 10 weeks. It was once we started to see some reservations drop off, and then we were thinking at the same time too, no one really knew what was going on and how it would impact you. The last thing we wanted to do was have complete strangers from another state on our property, not knowing where they came from, if they were in a COVID hotspot. So we did close for that 10 weeks. But no, we never looked at ever closing the building. We knew it was going to be a temporary thing. We just had to see how we could rework a couple of things and how we could come out of it stronger.
Since COVID hit in March of 2020, would you say the current state of the Chestnut Loft is back to normal, better, or worse?
Definitely better since March of 2020, because that, of course, was the month we shut down. That through June 1st was actually when we closed it down. But the state of it has been tremendous. We've had more reservations. We've hosted a lot of first-time people that have never used Airbnb or Vrbo or through Orbitz. There's a number of ways that you can actually find this property online. And so it's been really cool to interact with everybody. They really enjoy that. We've got a lot of repeat clients that come through here, whether they're traveling on the interstate between states for business, visiting kids down at Fort Hays. It's just been tremendous for us ever since everything opened back up.
So Dustin, how long have you been in business?
So this business, we started in September last year, 2020, middle of COVID-19. But I've actually owned my own business for about 10 years. Diamond Art Jewelry was my first business, and now recently the Fox Theater.
What industry or industries do you work in?
So basically retail and then what we would consider to be the hospitality industry. We do concerts, we do weddings, but both of those industries that were pretty hard hit by COVID-19.
Did the pandemic overall impact you negatively or positively?
I would say it impacted us negatively. We had a lot of fear that came from when the Strand opened up. We were worried we were going to lose weddings that were in fear of the pandemic. My jewelry store, it's tough to tell because the way that it worked was we had a good year, but you should progressively have better years as you get older in business, and at some point it kind of levels off. But we were still in a growth stage with Diamond R, and we had probably the best Christmas we've ever had. And so in that way, I think that COVID-19 actually helped Diamond R, and it's just because people didn't travel as much, and so they had a little more disposable income that they could spend on our jewelry store. And I think that they thought more about local businesses and how they might be doing, and so they wanted to be helpful. They wanted to give us business, especially since they maybe weren't impacted by it and thought, hey, we didn't go on a trip this year, so maybe I'll spend a little bit more money on Christmas gifts or stuff like that.
How did you have to pivot in your businesses?
So the big pivot with Diamond R was we were shut down for a while. We couldn't actually run our business. We weren't considered essential, and so we were asked to shutter our doors for a little while to try to slow the spread of the virus. I still think that was premature. We didn't really have COVID-19 out here at the time, and I was kind of back up at full capacity by the time it hit. But I understood the fear, and so that was a really scary time for me when I'm just sitting at my house wondering how things are going to do. And so, that was certainly scary. With the Strand, we were in the building stage. So the big thing for us was just how long will this last? If we get done and it's finally getting over with, then we're probably in good shape. It actually will create pent-up demand for things like weddings and get-togethers, and people just kind of get tired of staying at home and being alone. So they want to go out and do stuff like concerts and things like that. But the big pivot was, will we be able to have weddings in here? On what scale will that be? And then taking safety precautions when we did. To the best of our abilities, we had the ability for people to protect themselves. We always encourage people to wear masks if they felt like that would help. And our staff wore masks, especially during the mask mandates. We wore masks all the time, and you don't know if it helped or didn't help. It's hard to tell with a virus, but we certainly took precautions, and there was some pent-up demand. If you go months in a summer without having a single wedding in a county this size, there's certainly going to be backed up demand, especially when I think we average around 3 weddings a weekend in Ellis County. So.
Was there a time you considered closing either business or not even opening the Strand during the pandemic?
Yeah, there was a thought about delay. Luckily for us, we were kind of what I would call pot committed. We had to do it. We had money out on it, and so we needed to make the decision. With Diamond R, no. I mean, Diamond R was established enough that there was not going to be an issue with that, But yeah, I mean, never really came to mind that we were going to close anything down. But it certainly was scary. And so that's definitely something to keep in mind. Is there was a lot of small business owners that wondered how they were going to get through it and what they were going to do. Luckily, the government was able to do a little bit of helping with a lot of our businesses, whether it be PPP loans or EIDL loans, things like that helped us kind of stem the loss of income. The hardest thing was hiring. I didn't know how much I could pay my staff. I didn't know how long I could keep them around just taking losses. And luckily, I never had to let anybody go. But I did have one kid that was kind of planning to stay around a little longer. And I just told him, you need to go take the next job because we don't have anything to do.
Would you say your current state is back to normal, better, or worse?
Current state is better. We still struggle with hiring. We always trying to get staff in our businesses has been tough, but I think we're better now. We have a unique economy out here. When oil goes up, we're not necessarily in a bad situation like some places, but yeah, I mean, it's certainly better. All our businesses seem to be doing okay right now, and I would say the Strand is kind of the one we're in right now is kind of the shining star. It has weddings every weekend. Actually, it has 2 weddings this weekend. So we'll have a wedding on Friday, and we'll transition right away and get a wedding ready to go for Saturday too.
So Alec, what restaurants did you oversee or do you currently oversee?
Well, I started at Taco Grande and then I moved over here, but I've also helped them open like the Fox and Herd's Donuts, and I wasn't here for Bricks, but the rest of them.
And how long have you been with those businesses?
I've been here for about 6 years, I think, 6 or 7 with the Profits, so.
And obviously the restaurant industry was majorly impacted by COVID. And with that being said, do you believe that the pandemic impacted you negatively or positively?
Definitely negatively. I mean, everybody went through hard stuff with the pandemic, and, it just made for a lot less service and, yeah.
And are you seeing any repercussions with supply chain issues currently?
Yeah, actually, when I first came to Tiger Burgers, there was a wing shortage, so that was kind of hit or miss if we could even order wings, but most of the time they have everything in stock. It's just not the products we normally get, so it's just kind of random.
And how would you say you had to pivot during COVID?
We had to pivot by changing we changed a lot of hours, made it like less during the day, and we had to do full takeout and delivery for most of our stores. We couldn't really allow people in. There was at some point where we were allowed to have like half capacity, so we just had to shut down like half the tables or close half the lobby just to make sure the distance was safe for everybody.
And were there any businesses that you saw were casualties of the pandemic?
Yeah, so actually 2 of the ones we work with, the Fox and then the sushi place I was on the top floor of the Fox, both had to shut down because of the COVID.
And what was it like to manage everything kind of when it first hit and versus now?
It was kind of, at the first it was a struggle, but it kind of got easier because we couldn't do as much business. So it was a little easier to manage, honestly. But that's obviously not where we want to be as a business, so it's definitely getting back to normal now.
Yeah, so kind of leading into that as well, is your current state back to normal, better, or worse?
It's definitely getting better. I would say we're definitely in a growing phase. A lot of people aren't even wanting to work right now because of all the checks that went out, but we're slowly getting a crew back together and growing.
And do you think that the industry can bounce back from what happened?
I definitely think so. I definitely think over time it will. But it obviously will just take a lot of time to get there.
How long have you been in business for?
I have personally been in business for 19 years, but Reds as a business has been here for a little over 17 years.
What industry is Reds in?
We are a salon, a full-service salon.
Did the pandemic impact you negatively or positively?
Overall, positively, but it began negatively. They shut us down for 8 weeks, so I had to find another way to make money without having my doors open.
How did you have to pivot?
I've always wanted to have a boutique or little clothing area up front. So it gave me the opportunity, since our doors were closed and nobody could come in anyways, we remodeled and made room for a small area of boutique clothing and items. And then, but since I couldn't obviously have it open at that time, I was doing stuff online, selling and shipping and dropping off at people's houses. So just kind of, that was just getting my foot in the door for that part of the boutique.
Was there a time you guys considered closing down Reds outside of the lockdown when you were mandated to?
Thankfully, no, I never considered closing. I mean, I've like to think that I've made good enough choices in my life that it didn't impact me to the point where I wouldn't be able to survive. But and thankfully, all of my other girls that worked here were able to do okay without the 8 weeks of working, and we made up for it big time and then some when we opened our doors back up, because we had to get everybody back in and work a lot of extra hours.
Would you consider your current state to be back to normal, better, or worse?
Our state as a whole, I would probably say, is not back to normal. But small town western Kansas, I feel like we're all pretty much back to normal. Our industry, for the most part, in this area is back to normal. From most of the sites that I see and read up on, I think most people in the beauty industry have tried to normalize things as much as possible. I know some people in the bigger cities are still struggling and haven't quite got 100% back to where they were previously, but thankfully we are here.
So Alex, how long have you been in business for?
So first off, my name is Alex Munsch. I'm one of the owners of Munsch Fitness here, along with two others, Jacob Profit and David Profit. We've been open for approximately almost 6 years now, coming January 15th, coming up here soon. So.
And what industry do you work in?
So it's a gym / fitness center, whatever you want to call it, the fitness industry essentially. So.
And did the pandemic impact you negatively or positively?
It did both. Negatively because, we had to follow the procedures, go through the closing shutdown and whatnot. But in the same sense, it positively affected it because it made us step up our game in cleaning and like sanitation, which is obviously the most important thing in a fitness center where everybody's touching everything, touching the bars, drinking out of the water fountains. It made us step up that game, and that, in a sense, was positive. So you can look at it from any way you want, but I think ultimately it was positive in bringing a good product to our customers.
How did you have to pivot?
A lot of the same things everyone else did. We had to up our sanitation system. We put in these things called air nights in our ductworks. It has a UV light that kills germs as it goes by and brings in the fresh air from outside. So we did that. We upped our cleaning staff. We have a staff that cleans at night now. So it's being cleaned more often. It's just more sanitation, keeping distance from everybody, and so on and so forth.
Was there a time you considered closing while the COVID was going on?
We stayed open we tried staying open as long as we could, because we're a private business. So our business is essential to staying open. And, luckily we were able to stay open for a whole month after everyone else closed, and then we got forced to shut down. So we had to be shut down for I think about 3 months, and then we were able to open back up, softly open, kind of let people back in, slowly, keep your distance, stuff like that.
Would you say currently you're back to normal, better, or worse?
I would say we're a little worse still, but it has climbed the last year. We've been slowly climbing back out of that hole, which is a lot more to say than a lot of other businesses that had to close, and we're very, very blessed and lucky that we're here still. So yeah, it's worse, but we're getting there. It's getting better. More people are not afraid to come in anymore, and more open to the idea of getting back into the gym, which is great because health is first. So.
And with your memberships, did you see a decline in those, and then have they come back?
Yeah, it was a big decline. It was probably a 35% decline, and we've probably gotten close to 25% of that back. There's an extra, that 10% we're still trying to, promote and get people back in here, get people back into the gym, because once that happened, people just kind of went into a slump and almost a depression, where if they were fitness people before, they may not be now, because, that 3-month break really makes you wonder if you even like fitness anymore. So yeah, we're still trying to get people back in here, trying to push people for it. So.
Now, on a side note, you do have a real estate business as well. So when did that begin?
Yeah, so the real estate began for me about 2.5 years ago. I've been doing it. I started off part-time, but then I got so busy, and now it's full-time for me, which has been great. And kind of the same thing with that. We had to do some different procedures with that, like open houses. We had to make them virtual, do them through FaceTime. If you did do it in person, we had to keep our distance, wear gloves and face masks and stuff like that. And it didn't actually affect the real estate side of anything. If anything, it actually helped it for some weird reason. The market's been crazy. It has been crazy since COVID. Prices have been going up. They've been selling faster for more than it's worth. I mean, it's been good though, but it's just not a good time to buy. Yeah.
So do you see the real estate business continuing to trend upwards or a potential decline?
I think it's still going to just, trickle and stay the same for quite a while. And if people are buying, it's just, it's kind of like lumber. People are buying it, so the prices aren't going to come down. And until people stop buying, these prices are still going to be skyrocketed and the market's still going to be hot. So I see it staying the same for quite a while.
Obviously, COVID-19 did have an impact here locally in Hayes. Some business owners were impacted positively, others negatively. And even now, we're seeing some of the effects, such as supply chain shortages. So remember to support your local businesses. With Sharp Broadcasting, I'm Reece Leiker.